Welcome back to the Just Build Baby Studio. You're listening to the BuildX Podcast, your ultimate guide to creating exceptional homes, innovative living spaces, and staying informed on all aspects of residential construction. I'm your host, Buzz Artiano. Today, we're excited to have Bite the Frost. Gwendolen St. Sauveur in studio, sort of. She's by Zoom. She's up in Vermont, and so we couldn't entice her down here with a lunch or anything, so we're going to do this by Zoom, which is just as good. Welcome to the studio, Gwendolen.
Hi, Buzz. Thanks so much for hosting and for inviting me to join today. It's tempting in the summer, though. You guys are down nice near the beaches and the ocean, so Vermont,
Yep.
we don't have that.
All right. Well, maybe I'll get you down here for podcast number 2.
I like that. That sounds good. I'm excited to be part of the BuildX podcast and share some knowledge and resources with the community today. So it should be a good chat.
Yeah. So I believe we met each other at the JLC show, correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right. We had a booth there this year. What a fun time for anyone who hasn't been. Go to JLC. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I can say that on here if that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. We just have fun. We don't worry about any of that stuff. So shout out to JLC. I've been a long time reader. I've learned a tremendous amount from reading their publication, and actually one of my goals for 2026 is to be published in the JLC. So I wrote that down the other day, so that's the dream. I have a couple ideas to try to get on the map. So I will let you introduce yourself and who you are and your company, and then maybe just take us back to before. I see you, before Bite the Frost, you had a very interesting early career. So maybe if you could take us from, actually, why don't you take us from early days, maybe out of college or wherever you went, and then your early career, and then how Bite the Frost came about, and then tell us about Bite the Frost.
Sure. All right. So to all the listeners, hi, my name is Gwen. I am the founder and CEO of BTF Net Zero Designs, and that I launched in 2015. So we're celebrating 10 years. Woo! But
congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. Before that, I wore a number of various hats throughout my career. I have been an MEP designer, an architectural designer, a construction coordinator, a solar and renewable energy designer. I've been an estimator, and then for about a decade, I was a mechanical engineer. And that was the one that really stuck with me. And as a mechanical engineer, I specialized entirely in commercial construction, whereas BTF is entirely residential. But as that mechanical engineer, I gained tons of hands-on experience through hundreds of commercial projects throughout New England. And those projects, they really varied a lot. So it was schools, offices, laboratories, hospital suites, healthcare clinics, commercial kitchens, hotels, lodges, theaters, dormitories, workshops, maintenance facilities, a lot of state and federal owned facilities of really all sorts and types. And in 2015, I started BTF, which is what Bite the Frost.
But you're jumping ahead there. So when did that idea start? How did you come up with the name? Like, come on, you're leaving us hanging.
All right, so Bite the Frost, I just thought was a really cool slogan, like just a really cool phrase. And as we're both in New England, there's a lot of four season this and foliage whatever and mountain something. And I was like, okay, if I'm gonna start a business, it has to have a name that's totally rememberable, something that's gonna stick with people and they'll be able to Google it and not forget what I told them or get something else. So that's where Bite the Frost came from, and I just abbreviated it to BTF Net Zero Designs now, because that's what I was initially really passionate about. And as a commercial mechanical engineer, a lot of these really big facilities use a lot of fossil fuels, like a lot. And
Oh yeah.
I just, I spec'd that one last huge hot water heater, and I was just like, the residential segment is trying to step away from fossil fuels, and I'd really like to be part of that. And I saw how much assistance builders really need to make that, achievable. And so that's where I switched over, I guess. I started my own company.
Yeah, but I'm gonna go a couple levels deeper there. So you're sitting at you wake up one morning and you say, I'm gonna start a company. I mean, give us a hint of where the idea came from, and you just were staring out the window and that name came to you, or give it, come on, give us a little more detail.
Yeah, I did stare out the window quite a bit. I had a really nice corner cubicle that overlooked Mount Mansfield, so that was pretty sweet. It was hard to give up, but it uh it was based on the idea of, okay, how can we make net zero construction fast, cheap, and easy? And that's really like my slogan is, it needs to be builder friendly tools. We need to make this achievable and not this super high end elite thing that just costs so much money to do. Otherwise, there's really no movement in it. It just stays this niche industry.
Right.
And so I thought, all right, how do we reverse engineer this? And I had a lot of energy modeling experience as that mechanical engineering role. And so I was like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's reverse engineer some stock net zero designs. And it was kind of cool. So I used a couple of energy modeling resources, and I said, let's use normal building materials and see what we get. Just like 2x6 walls, double pane windows, just normal stuff that everybody's been using forever. And it ended up being, we whittle it around. So we'd move a wall here or there, we rotate the thing, we add or drop a window, and it ended up being that a naturally energy efficient home is what we've been building all over New England for the last hundreds of years, for the last few hundred years. So it
Yeah.
was capes, colonials, and farmhouses. It was just simple rectangular shapes with
Yeah.
symmetry and thoughtful window placement. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, of course that makes sense. That's,
What's what's old is new. What's old is new.
yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah.
but I'm going to press you a little harder now. So take me way back. So how did you get, when you were a little girl, you said, "Hey, I'm going to design net zero houses." I mean, where does this passion come from? Take me to the early days, your early days. What got you interested in mechanical engineering?
Yeah. Oh, I was never interested in mechanical engineering. I am now, but never as a kid. Yeah. I was really into architecture as a kid. We moved fairly frequently, and in that we got to look at a lot of houses. Like every weekend, there's a house for sale around the corner or where we're going, and that really made me realize, architecture is kind of cool. So I immediately, went to school thinking I was going to be an architect, and I finished a 2-year architecture program and realized I hate this. I absolutely hate it. It's a lot of material specification, and we do now. We As you will talk further, you'll learn we do a lot of custom projects of all sorts. And so sometimes we do take on architectural design clients, and it's very hands-on and it's very client specific. So you're
Sure.
helping one client, which is great, but you're not really able to help a bunch of clients.
Right.
And I really like helping people. I like problem solving. And so I took some time off and I said, all right, what am I going to go back to school for? And I went for construction management. And so I have a 4-year in construction management, and I figured, for some commercial construction company, I'd be a scheduler or an estimator or something like that. And in my senior year of that program, an engineering firm reached out to me, one of the local ones, and they said, "Hey, come in for an interview." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, that sounds fun." And so they're like, "Oh, go to Burlington, Vermont. We got an office there." And in that interview, they told me I was hired on the spot, and they're turning me into a mechanical engineer. And I was like, what? Yeah, that's not anything. Do you see my resume? Yeah, like it turned it out that I learned AutoCAD. Most people don't know AutoCAD anymore. It's all Revit
Right.
everything. But I'd learned AutoCAD, and they were like, you know what? We just need a kid who's smart enough to learn this stuff and knows AutoCAD. So yeah, I jumped right in. I was at that firm for 7 or 8 years, and I sat for the FE and like all the exams and tests, and I really dug my teeth in and learned everything that I possibly could. And that was a multidiscipline firm, which was really cool. So we had structural, electrical, mechanical, site and civil survey. There's probably disciplines that I'm missing, but there was a lot of different disciplines.
Wow.
And so a lot of these commercial projects, our company would get hired to do several areas of engineering, which led me to do a lot of like cross training, I guess. So
Sure.
occasionally
Yeah.
I'd be able to
Yeah.
help like the structural department or help the survey department or the civil team. And I got to learn a little bit about their disciplines as well, which really taught me about construction coordination, which really was my next role. So I that was a straight up engineering firm. And then after that, I went as a mechanical engineer to a mechanical construction company. Mid-size, again, projects all over New England, but they were really doing the installation of it. And so I got to work on some design build projects there and do a lot of construction coordination, which is really like, hey, this pipe is going through this beam. How do we fix that? Or, where do we work with the architect to fix this whole ductwork thing that doesn't have space? Yeah,
Yep.
so that was good. Really getting into the hands-on of it, I recommend as well. Yeah. So I like construction. Is what it.
Yeah, I can tell. And it's funny. So I was just sitting here reminding me. I remember meeting you at the JLC show, and I remember thinking to myself, I really need. She's like a real. She's really energetic. I want to get her on the
Oh,
podcast. So
thanks.
yeah, no, I'm having fun. So so now you're 7, 8 years into that firm, and when did the first idea for yourself to say, hey, I want to go out on my own? Because that's a big leap. Yeah. So how did that? Walk me through that.
It was a little slow at the beginning, just because I needed, at least I thought I needed to really finish developing kind of like a portfolio. And so in nights and weekends, I was doing this energy modeling, trying to figure out how I could help the residential construction industry build net zero and help as many people as possible with that transition. And so I did the energy modeling and I realized, these capes, colonials, and farmhouses are really where it's at. And that I still, it just makes so much sense. Like when people, were building these homes by hand, it took them like 10 years to build a house for their family and they'd chop the wood down by hand. And of course, they'd heat the thing by chopping the wood down by hand. Like whether they knew it or not, they were energy efficient shapes. So I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
confident that that made sense. And then I leaned into my architectural background for a little while and I said, okay, let's make some stock plans. There's already the stock plan industry. You guys have some great stock plans on your website. Shout out
Thank
to
you.
your ADUs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I figured, that's not pushing the
Well, one of the
envelope
one of
too
the goal
much.
one of
Yeah.
the goals out of one of my goals out of this meeting is that we got to figure out the Gwendolen. We've got an X11, the Gwendolen. So we got to have an X11, the Gwendolen plan. That's the
Oh, I
goal to
love
have
that.
yeah, like a net zero. That would be so a net zero ADU, which we don't have. So anyway, sidebar on that. So you start coming up with some stock plans. I sorry I interrupted you, but go
You're
ahead.
good. You're good. Yeah. So I started doing some stock plans, and it was like, okay, well, this is a beautiful historical shape, but how do we give it a modern interior? And so I spent a lot of time figuring out, the layout of these homes needs to be kind of future-proofed. And so for us, future-proofed meant, at home offices, it meant mudrooms, it meant traditional kitchens. It did still mean smaller square footage. So all of our designs are less than 2,000 square feet. A lot of them are in that 1,500, 1,300 range, which ended up really working out for our connections with affordable housing. But yeah,
Sure.
that's kind of jumping ahead.
Yeah.
So we did a whole bunch of time figuring out, okay, what's a good layout here? And what's kind of neat, a lot of people don't realize this, is at least for our stock plans, we figured out that about 14 to 16% of your finished square footage is either a hallway or actual like the width of your wall, your four and a
Yeah.
half inches. And so a lot of people will send us sketches, and I'm sure you get them too. The graph paper with the wall is literally a line, and it's like, well, we're
Yeah.
missing like 15% walls right now, so we're gonna lose some space here. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
it all fits when the wall's an eighth of an inch wide.
yeah, it does. It all fits when the wall's paper thin. Exactly. Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, we did a lot of neat things and we even, I relied on some of our friends. I have like an in-home physical therapist is a great example. And so I had him review our plans and I was like, "Hey, what should I be thinking about to future-proof this?" And so we call them aging in place friendly. And I know you just had a really great episode talking about that ADA kind of aspect. And so, we design with that in mind. We have home offices, lots of closet space, your kitchen, I like to call them tiny big homes. It's kind of where it's at. So it's like, 1,500
Yeah.
square feet, but like you still have like a full kitchen and like plenty of space and maybe even a walk-in closet. So uh so that's where we did the stock plans, and usually that's what you get is architectural stock plans. And then where we spun it is let's merge this with mechanical engineering. So at that point, I had the energy models. Let's drop these things in all different climates around the country. And so thousands of energy models later, we were able to include the mechanical systems for our stock plans. So you get, your heat pumps are pre-sized, your
Bill.
ventilation system,
Yep.
yeah, everything. So at that point, we got DOE zero energy ready, kind of like approved, part of that program. And so I started looking into like, okay, Energy Star and all of these certifications that people are starting to be enticed by. What does that mean exactly? And so then we added solar PV designs to our plan set. And it's really now at the point where you can pick one of our stock plans. And as far as I know, we're still the first in the country to do this, the architecture integrated with mechanical. But you can pick one of our stock plans and literally follow your way through the package. So if you're a builder who's never built net zero or even high efficiency, you can just follow the directions in the plan set. And again, it's builder friendly. I am such a builder friendly person. So I'm not giving you a whole bunch of details you don't need. It's really just this is what you need to build this.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting. So I did spend some time last night and this morning going through your website. I love a lot of your little plans. It's funny. So my early career from 1991 to 2020, I've always built a lot of colonials. I've built and capes, well over 700 and something colonials, and they were all rectangles. The early days they were 24 by 32s, and then they went to 24 by 34s, and then with the new stairway code and some other stuff, we had to go to 26 34. And it's funny, I drove through a neighborhood the other day that I built in early 2000 2001, and there was two other builders in there, and I can pick my houses out right away when I drive by them, because they're I like a balanced house, balanced windows, window pediments, and I have my own look, if you will, that I like, and I can recognize my houses right away. So it was fun to drive through there. I think I built 60 or odd houses in there. So, and they all still look good. So
Yeah, it's timeless. That colonial
yeah,
look is it
it
always
really is.
matches. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was fun to take a stroll down memory lane. I don't even remember why I was over there, but I said, you know what, I'm going to drive through there. I haven't been in through it in probably 15 years. Um, so now fast forward to today. So I did go through your website and the stock plans, and so tell me about that process. So I'm a builder or a homeowner, and I love one of your plans, and I click on it and I order it online. What happens next?
At that point, we'll reach out and say, hey, do you have an address you want us to update on the title block? And where do you want us to mail a print of these 24 by 36 roll of drawings? And we'll send you a copy. That's pretty much it. So occasionally we'll get people who ask for customizations, which is kind of unavoidable. Unfortunately, I think, we have such a housing need, I think, nationwide, and we're filling it in New England, as I'm sure many places are. And I think it's really important for people to start to realize that customization costs money and time. And when we need a lot of housing, customization really shouldn't be the top priority of so many people, but it is. I
Right.
wish it was more like the car industry where you get four colors and it's like, that's it. You can pick four colors. That's all yeah. I wish sometimes housing was like that. No one agrees with me, but that's okay.
Well, I would say I 80% agree with you.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
gonna gi- I'm gonna give you 80%.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you can
And
buy your own
but
steering wheel color. I don't care about that, but
I get the plans. So I get the plans in the mail, and now I'm looking at them. I'm gonna pretend I'm your customer, and I bought some plans from you, and they've arrived in the mail, and it's for house 123 Main Street. Now, obviously, the site orientation is going to have to be effective for some of your designs, correct?
that's
So
true. Yeah.
when does that discussion come up, or is that in the plans? It tells me, hey, this roof has to face south. Where is that in the package?
Yeah, beautiful. So it's in there. And it's part of our marketing materials. There's a design north. And that's something that we had to do to get the solar PV designs to match the DOE Zero Energy Ready Home program. They have a requirement of so many square feet facing due south or within so many degrees of due south. So we had to say, this is our design north. And for that reason, we we make them pretty from most sides is kind of how I describe it. So there's just symmetry around the entire home. So your front really could be various sides of these designs.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and so in that stock plan, it'll say, this is our design north. But there is that caveat of, if you're not going for the certification programs and you just wanted to build a net zero home for you, you could face north anywhere because when it gets coldest and how you size your mechanical systems is in our northern climates usually derived by the heating load. So you're going to say when it's 20 degrees below zero and it's nighttime, this is the size heat pump that you're going to need. And that heat pump can already inherently do more cooling than it can heating. So you size for your heating. So if somebody wants to build this house in any orientation and doesn't care about the certification, they just want to build net zero, they can, and you can add solar really anywhere in your property. If it's
Sure.
a east or west array or south array or a column in your yard for a ground mount, that's fine too. And some customizations we get are a little more like, can we, move the whole kitchen and can we add a dormer and can we, do a whole different thing. That happens as well. And so we do offer a customization process where it's just like an hourly design. And it's kind of like a back and forth of, do you like this version or this version? And we whittle it down until they get what they like.
Okay, so if I have a stock set of plans and then I get it and I look at it and I want some changes, I can email you or call you up and then we can obviously pay additional, but we can get modifications done to that plan and you will still make sure that it's net zero when it's done, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to take you into the builder world. So I'm going to take you where as I'm looking at the plans, obviously I don't have a set of your plans, so I can't really speak to what's included, but so talk to me about foundation. So what type of foundation does it come with?
So several of them are designed to be slab on grade because a lot of our plans that are built by affordable housing communities, they've learned that it's most cost effective to do the slab on grade. And whether
But why? But let me push back on that. Is it really? Because in this, let me tell you my reasoning, and then I'm okay. And again, I'm okay with you telling me I'm wrong. So I'm going to tell you my reasoning. So anytime I've ever built slab on grade, I still have to excavate for a 4-foot frost wall, right? Now I need to insulate the exterior or the interior perimeter of that foundation, right? Now I need to backfill it and make sure it's perfectly compacted. Then I need to re-excavate for my plumbing and whatever else I'm doing underground. I'm going to make sure my water line got in and it got sure in the right place. My septic out, wherever that's going. Now I'm assuming in your design, I'm going to need to put insulation under that slab, right? And now I'm going to eventually pour a slab.
correct. Yeah.
Right. Why can't I just skip all that and have a crawl space that's insulated on the inside with spray foam and frame a conventional floor?
You certainly can. So some of our designs come with slab on grade because as you're alluding to, I think a lot of those aspects of the construction process, the cost savings are maybe like client dependent. It's kind of site dependent sometimes, or the affordable housing groups. I don't know necessarily if they're all doing the 4-foot frost wall or if they're going for more of the Alaskan slab sort of style. And so more than anything, I like to give options. And so
No, I
since
understand, but
yeah,
let's explore. I mean, this obviously you're heavily into energy, efficient housing. So I'm going to ask questions, and I'm trying to learn as well. So
okay, all right.
I'm gonna lean on you. So explain to me. I think I know what the Alaskan slab is, right? But explain to the people watching and myself what is the Alaskan slab in your opinion.
Yeah. So the Alaskan slab would be kind of like a monolithic slab. So rather than having the 4 foot frost walls, it would be fattened around the perimeter. And that amount that you fatten it, I'm not a structural engineer, so you would have a site structural engineer help you design that thickness exactly, and then you would still have insulation underneath the slab. Can't really avoid that.
Right.
That's kind of a good thing. Yeah. And then in some cases you can even have found like with the Alaskan slab, you would have, I guess people can't necessarily see my hands. Here I am trying to talk with my hands,
No, we
but
can see your
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
You can see your hands. Yeah, go
But
ahead.
you would have insulation around the perimeter of that, as well as maybe kicking out from the building itself.
So I'm gonna so to just to buckle and brace that. So in my spare time when I'm resting, I'm gonna do some math, and I'm gonna do some actual estimating, and I think that I'm gonna prove that the crawl space is the most affordable option.
Let's see. I like to see the numbers. I love
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
numbers.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
we're gonna do a follow-up episode of Alaskan slab. So if you could send me that detail, please. Obviously, I have, and send me your slab on grade detail with the frost wall, and I'm gonna use my detail for the crawl space, and then we're gonna have the battle royale of all things foundation.
I love it. Yeah. Don't forget the walkout too, I guess, right? We gotta
Yeah,
throw
well,
that in there too.
that's a different conversation. So obviously, So let's switch to full foundation. So obviously, in New England, most everybody wants a full foundation. So what? If I say to you my plan, I want a full foundation. Do you send me a plan with a full foundation?
Indeed, yeah. So,
Okay.
I guess kind of like we offer variations because we don't know where our plan is being built, and we obviously
Sure.
don't necessarily
Yeah.
get to see your site. It's part of the stock plan industry. There is a little bit of like, tweaking to make this work for where you need it. So our plans are built nationwide. From Maine to California, we have had our stock plans built, and the requirements for a home being built in California are certainly different than a home being built here in Vermont or New England in general. And so we like to provide those options. So if a plan works well for a foundation, we'll have those variations of,
Got
here
it.
is your full foundation option. Here's your full foundation option with east walkout, with a north walkout, with a west walkout, whatever your site works best. These all are variations that you can choose from. So some of our slab on grade options are beneficial in the fact that there's a mechanical space on that first floor. And
Right.
sometimes people want that because sometimes, everybody likes different things, but that gives you an option of having your mechanical room already having a space on the first floor. Because otherwise you
Right.
got to carve out
Yeah.
like a whole bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There are times when you just have to do a slab on grade for whatever reason, water table or whatever it is. I get that. So let me take you back to full foundation. So take me through what that is. It's obviously conventionally poured footing, conventionally poured wall. But then what are we doing to insulate that foundation? What does that look like?
Yeah, so our plans, again, I'm not a structural engineer, so our plans are not going to say, this is your rebar or footing layout to that
I understand.
extent.
Yeah,
You're going to need, somebody local who knows what they're doing for your local ground, requirements. Um, and so the foundation, I guess if you think of it like a box, your whole home is a box, and there's a top to the box, a bottom to the box, and then there's 4 sides to the box. And energy efficiency and when we did all of those energy models and we decided, hey, capes, colonials, and farmhouses are where it's at. It's all about your exterior surface area. That's where the energy savings is so when you have your box, like with a full foundation with a walkout, you're basically looking at more surface area. So your
right.
heating system, and we provide them in our stock plans, option A, option B, so on and so forth, and you pick your and follow your option all the way through the plan set. But a full foundation with a walkout might require a different HVAC system than something that's got a slab
Sure.
on grade, or even just
Right.
a full foundation with no walkout. So yeah, there's a lot of information. Yeah.
No, I understand, but on the full foundation, are you doing exterior
Oh, I
perimeter
didn't answer the
insulation?
question very well. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
this is all good stuff. And again, I know I'm probably guiding you a little bit, but I wanna go kind of area by area just for our listeners and also for myself. So, are you an exterior insulation proponent? Are you an interior insulation proponent? I'm just talking about basement now. So where
I kind of like both, to be honest. And sometimes it depends on what you're building above it. So like if you're doing a SIPS home, like a timber frame with SIPS exterior walls, exterior insulation is kind of nice because then you can follow it all the way down the facade and you don't have a change in your surface, you don't have a bump in or a bump out because it
right?
changes. And so it kind of depends, what you are looking for. I think in general, I do like exterior insulation, um, but more so when we're talking about the wood and the frame on the upstairs above ground. Below ground, it's more than anything important to deal with the moisture management, especially, in New England with foundations. So if you're making sure that you leave that air gap like off of that concrete wall before you throw in your insulation, or if you do some foam board and vapor barriers that are appropriate with your assembly. um, I'm more of a proponent of people using the materials that they're comfortable with and know how to install properly than telling them you need to go use this super fancy new thing.
Got it.
That's my 2 cents. Yeah.
No, no, that's good. That's good stuff. So now I'm gonna talk about just a conventionally framed house, not no, either I-joist or regular floor joist, 2x6 wall. So let's go through the framing. So do your plans specify insulated headers? Do they specify full, 1-inch foam on the outside? Kind of where are you landing on that?
Great question. So the way that we worked out a good wall system for a net zero home using traditional 2x6 studs, because there's a lot of people out there who are going for, the double stud wall and the cellulose insulation, and that's
Yeah.
certainly a building method. But our goal was to make it, conventional building material.
Yeah, that double wall thing. That's more of a religion than it is as a. No, and listen. I respect that stuff. I
Yeah.
respect it, but that's a
Cost
calling.
prohibitive.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and it's a
it's a
calling.
calling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a calling. There's a lot of details, and you have to self-perform a lot of work with people that are going to listen to you the way you want it done. So it's not something that can easily be mass produced.
Right, right. That's very
Right.
true. And
Right.
and
So
so 2x6 wall is pretty easy to mass produce. We've
yeah,
been doing it for quite a few decades now. And so for
yeah.
us, it's a 2x6 wall filled with either your choice really, rock wool, fiberglass, cellulose, whatever you're comfortable with filling that 5.5 inches with works for our plans. It's where the continuous exterior insulation really comes in. So our wall assembly between like an R30 and an R34, your exact materials are going to change that a little bit, is fine with our HVAC designs. And so that continuous exterior insulation, there we go, is 2.5 inches, which is more than a lot of
Two and a
builders
half. Wow.
like.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do
So
realize
2.5 without the plywood or without the
uh
sheathing.
2.5 without the sheathing. Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that is a lot. And the reason that ended up being our kind of go-to is really the northern climates, and us starting in Vermont and
Sure.
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York. They're pretty northern climates, and what happens is you have a dew point in your wall assembly, so where the temperature and pressure and humidity in our building and outside of our building always change, and they're never matching really, unless you leave your windows open all the time and don't ever cook anything. Then they might match. But what happens is you get that dew point, and it moves into your assembly a couple of inches. And in our more northern climates, it can move up to 2.5 inches into your assembly. And so what happens is you get that condensation and that dew point inside of your studs, inside of your cavity insulation. And, that's just kind of making for great potential for future rot, which is not ideal. And a lot of our energy codes up here anyway are starting to push for that continuous exterior insulation,
Right.
or continuous in general, just to get rid of
Right.
that bridging with the stud.
Sure. Yeah. Which is there a lot of bridging in a conventional house, 'cause, unless you do hybrid framing or smart framing, and again that's it's going to require some skill, and you're going to have some arguments with the building department, and all that stuff. So continuous installation obviously is the easiest way to get that real envelope. So in your plans, it shows all the details to deal with the window openings, and so I'm assuming a lot of cross sections to show people what to do when they get to windows and doors.
There's a couple of cross sections, not a whole lot, really just the ones that you need. And with the continuous exterior installation, we also, again, we list options. So it was really handy with the zip bar system going to offer a 2.5 inch. But we've also heard a lot of builders who are like, yeah, that means I need a new gun. Like it's 2.5 inches. It kind of feels a little floppy when you get it up on the wall. Sometimes with like the structural analysis of like I'm forgetting a shear wall. There
The
we go.
racking, yeah, the
Yeah, and the
racking,
racking, yeah. So we have heard of folks that do, a 1 inch zip bar system and then put another 1.5 inches of whatever their favorite board is around the outside and then wrap the whole thing. So there's
Really?
certainly, yeah, there's
Yeah.
different, and then there's I think a couple other companies that are trying to do continuous exterior out of like better materials. Like there's that Timber HP up
Right.
in Maine. They're doing a
Yep.
continuous exterior. I would be very surprised if Rockwall doesn't already have a continuous exterior.
Yeah, they do. I'm not remembering the name of it, but they do. Yep.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of it either. But
Yeah.
that's part of the things we put in there is, again, whatever method you're comfortable with assembling to the manufacturer's recommendations and like can get your hands on too. So for us, sometimes a building material or even, a window that we spec is available on the East Coast, but not on the West Coast. And so we have to build in a lot of, this is an option, but here are a couple other options. Really pick which one works best for you. And our HVAC system is still designed to match it. Yeah.
Got it. So now one thing we didn't talk about was spray foam. So where are you on the spectrum of spray foam? Hate it, love it?
Oh, this is a personal thing. I'm not a huge fan of spray foam.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think it has its place. Like if you're insulating, really tricky to get spots is where it has its place. And sometimes that's, the
Yeah.
basement rim is a good spot, or really just complicated details in corners where you can't get anything but the nozzle of some sort of spray foam gun into that corner. That's where it's useful. I have been reading some industry reports of Europe, right? Europe gets every product before we do about, what happens when you don't have that spray foam mixed just right.
Oh yeah.
And that setup, even the chemicals that you're breathing. I was reading some articles about the framing materials that you're using. If you're spray foaming around a bunch of 2x6s that aren't dried out enough, what ends up happening is like the moisture from your spray foam, or I mean the spray foam assembly collects that moisture into the wood, and the wood rots itself out because there's no place for that moisture to go. That's something that they had issues with in Europe. So it's
Oh, so you're saying it was damp when it was built, and
yeah,
then they spray foamed it tight, and it never could dry out.
yeah. There's a couple
Wow.
of interesting.
I have not heard that one. That's an
Right? I
interesting
know that
one.
one's weird. Just like it rots itself out. Yeah,
Yeah, I want to see more data on that.
yeah.
I'm throwing a flag on that. That seems thin to me.
I
Because
think
if it can't escape the moisture, then means there's no oxygen, and how did it rot? So
yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, I don't know.
fair.
I think that was written by someone that doesn't like spray foam.
I think it really depends on the mix you're using too. Like if it's
Yeah.
closed cellar, open
Oh yeah,
cell,
yeah. No, if
yeah.
it's not done right, it's a disaster. I mean, that's you still sign forms when you buy a house today that says there's no formaldehyde, right? So, and that's been gone for a long time. And people, I used to own a fire and water damage company, and we've pulled out a lot of that old foam, and a lot of it was good, and some of it was bad, and it was very obvious when you pulled it apart, which was not installed correctly. So it's pretty fascinating. So again, it all goes back to you can say how much is it a square foot? Well, do you want it done right or do you want it done fast? Right?
Right.
You can't have
exactly
both.
that.
So
you cannot.
it's not all energy design modelers and net zero and bite the frost people are built the same, and not all insulation installers are built the same, unfortunately.
Right.
So it's a very fluid situation. So now let's explore. So now that's the outside wall. let's explore the cavities. So we've talked about fiberglass. So you're a proponent of fiberglass?
I'm fine with it. I think where it becomes
Okay.
challenging is you don't necessarily perform as well on your blower door test. It is really
Right.
hard to get a tight assembly
Yeah.
with fiberglass.
100%.
Yeah, that's
No, that's good. That's good. So so have you experimented at all in your modeling with this timber HP batting, this new cellulose product that's reclaimed?
I haven't. No. I
No?
I I think it goes back to, we're trying to not make it expensive, right? So brand new
So
materials.
you're basically saying you need to fill this cavity with something that's going to meet this R value. You pick.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then so now we're in so then let's go to the roof assemblies. Are your roof assemblies vented or unvented?
They're vented in our
Okay.
designs. And I guess there is a variation where we do, we have a partnership with one of the timber frame companies in Vermont, and they do a SIPS assembly, which is not a
Yeah.
vented roof. So
Right.
there is that variation, but a vented roof assembly. And for us to get all the square footages and the usefulness of the space, right, to use the most of our box that we have our exterior surface area on, usually means a finished attic space. So insulating end to eaves.
Finished attic.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Finished
So
attic.
like
Okay.
bedrooms or something goes up there usually.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and so it's usually a 10-12 or a 12-12 roof pitch, which I know is a little
Yeah.
steeper than some people like, but we're
Yeah.
making the most of the
I
material.
love honestly I love a steep roof. I love a
I
10
know.
or 12 pitch. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, And I think the best practice for that, so we say an R49 assembly, same as before. Here are some options to get that R49
Got it.
assembly. And, we've got people who use trusses, we've got people who stick frame that rafter and ridge assembly. Uh, Whatever you're comfortable with is fine. And the best practice is, instead of like insulating, there's obviously knee walls when you're finishing out an attic space. And instead of insulating the floor of the knee wall and the wall of the knee wall and then going up the rafter, the best practice is to insulate the entire rafter and just keep
Right.
that.
Yeah.
that
Follow it
inward.
right down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that way there, the knee wall, your knee crawl space, if you will, is a conditioned area.
It is. Yeah. And it's a great
And-
spot to put like
Right.
ERVs is a
Right.
good one.
Yeah.
Which we haven't even really talked about much.
Well, we're about to go there because we just finished with the envelope. So so now let's talk about, well, let's do heating systems first, heating and cooling. So obviously all these systems are heat pumps.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay, and they can be powered by electricity, obviously, in all cases. But are some of these geothermal? I mean, where do we land on that?
Yeah. So our designs inherently come with mini split designs. And that's
Okay.
again because
So
they're
surface mounted mini splits.
yes, yeah. And
Okay.
that's because they're, most people are comfortable with installing them. You can get them nationwide. They come in various makes and models. There's a lot of cold climate heat pump options out there, so they're not going to shut down when it's 5 degrees out.
Right.
And we do also offer designs. So somebody would just have to reach out to us and ask, hey, I want to build this one, but I don't want to use a mini split. And in that case, we can help with a geothermal heat pump or an air to water heat pump or a ducted heat pump. Especially for the ducted heat pumps, it kind of gets into, hey, you might need to hire us as a customization, because designing an entire ductwork system in a house really does take time.
Sure.
And that's my favorite thing to do, is draft ductwork. So that's fine by me. Yeah.
That's interesting. So, so you basically, when you say you spec the equipment, you give them the SEER rating that they need and the capacity of temperature it needs to go down to, and then they can, again, you're totally agnostic to it. They can buy, LG, they can buy whatever brand that they can get their hand on.
Correct. Yeah. And so that we list a few more things than that, but those are the big ones. We do actually spec a couple of makes and models in the heat pump world. So we spec a couple Mitsubishis, some Carriers, and some boy, I forgot the third one now. But we do show, hey, this is a model you may consider.
Okay. All right. So you give them a little guidance on that.
Yeah, a little guidance. I do have to say though that that is even changing because of their changes in refrigerant. A lot of the manufacturers are completely redoing their lines right now.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's definitely hard to keep up with.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously with the new refrigerant now there's propane in it, so we have to worry about fire, and it's kind of interesting. I haven't dug into that why we put propane in refrigerant, but what do I know? So now we have our HVAC system. So now let's talk about indoor air quality.
That's my newest favorite thing to talk about. As I think with a lot, like I imagine for you, a lot of your clients, is indoor air quality becoming more of a talking point?
So yes, and it's interesting, and again, it's probably based on the things that I film about and talk about. I have a lot of customers recently that have some type of environmental challenge, in their life, and they want to make sure that they're not going to be exposed to that. And again, so we've had a lot of recent conversations around radon. It's not that prevalent here, but I've always, made my houses, radon ready, or I've just installed that pipe ahead of time, right down into the floor. Yeah, honestly, it's mandatory for me now. I'm not going to say it always was. I've certainly built a lot of houses without it, but I've always known about it, and if we knew about it, we made sure it was ahead of time. Again, there's a lot of sand here, so you don't, there are places with radon, but it's pretty rare. It's not like Vermont where everything has radon, right?
Yeah. Oh,
so,
yeah.
and for for people listening, radon is created by decaying rock, right? And so, the radiation inside the rock, I don't remember the exact term, but it's decaying and has a half-life, and when it decays, it gives off the bad stuff, and that's what you breathe, and over time it gets in your lungs and gives you bad things. So if you can get it out of your house, that's the way to do it. So we do put a radon pipe in all our structures now ahead of time, and we just make sure it's straight up from the floor, and we just rely on the chimney effect to take care of that, take care of the exhausting that, that radon. So, so radon's obviously a big one. Indoor air quality, VOCs, materials that don't have a lot of VOCs, or, glues. I have a customer now that, we're trying to figure out, the most cost-effective way to limit the amount of adhesives in the house, right? And so, if you think about it, if you really start thinking about it, there's a lot of glue in building materials, right? You have all your OSBs, you have your micro lams, you have your I-joists, you have your adhesives, you have your spray foam, you have your spray foam glue that goes under the subfloor. There's a lot of adhesive. You have acrylic window wrap. There's a lot going on. So
It doesn't end, yeah.
yeah. It's so what I said to them is, listen, probably the best thing we can do is be smart about what we can eliminate, and then make sure we have a whole house, home energy recovery ventilation system that's tied to, one of those sensors that will say, okay, the indoor air quality is not too great right now. Let's kick on and let's do some air changes, right? So, we had Andrew on from Home Energy Raiders, and he went through that, and I learned a lot from him. He's a smart guy. So, but anyways, let's talk about your designs and what you suggest with whole house ventilation or energy recovery units.
Yeah. I recommend exactly that, an energy recovery unit that covers your whole home for sure. So we've noticed since the pandemic, it's become a lot more of a talking point with our clients as well, that they're just noticing the air that they're breathing more and more. And the best way to take care of that is by bringing in some fresh outdoor air and exhausting stale indoor air. And you get the VOC buildups, but you also get pollen and dirt and dust in your home that we, track in our boots every day, our dogs, shedding. And for me, I think the most interesting is CO2 buildup in our bedrooms.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
efficiency, I should send it to you. Efficiency Vermont did a really great study. It's a simple light white paper. I love a white paper that's like 10 pages, not like 400. So this one's like a 10-page white paper that talks about, the CO2 levels that build up in your bedroom at night when you have, just you or a couple of occupants or a couple of occupants and a dog. And it is outstanding how many of us sleep at night at over 1,000 parts per million. And 1,000 parts per million is where you start getting heart palpitations, headaches, nausea, low concentration. It's prevents you from getting restful sleep. And most of
Wow.
us are sleeping with that every night. And so when you look at the ventilation air requirements in the codes, it actually doesn't say to bring fresh ventilation air into the bedrooms, but our
Yeah.
designs do include that. They design the duct, we design the ductwork to go into the bedrooms
So
at night.
you're a proponent of a ducted
I
whole house
am.
ventilation system.
I
Yeah, okay.
am. Yeah.
So you have intakes, you have intake, you have a intake somewhere, and you have exhaust in all the bedrooms.
So it would be supply into the bedrooms and then exhausting out of the bathrooms and the kitchen area. And the bathrooms and the kitchen area is a code requirement for places that you should be exhausting air out of. Supply is not including the bedrooms yet. I imagine it will in future iterations of the IRC and similar codes. Just
And
because
so
we're
do you
starting to learn.
recommend like
Yeah.
so in your plans then show that ductwork and show how that's all going to connect?
Yep.
And then you specify the unit, you specify some units that they
We
should
do.
use?
Yep, we show a
Yeah,
couple of
okay.
units. We tell you the CFM, and we even get down to the balancing of dampers at the end. So the most important part of a ducted anything, ERV or an HVAC system, um, is balancing the ductwork at the other end. Because you can install the system and it's gonna move like water. It's just gonna be air taking the path of least resistance. And so if you don't have balance dampers at the end of every piece of ductwork, you're not going to actually have the air moving the way you designed it to.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's
because
the
it's
most
going to
important
go
thing.
more
Yeah,
to where it's easy and less to where it's hard.
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And so
Yeah,
we
that's
actually,
interesting.
yeah, we actually have had this conversation about ERVs and ventilation air so much recently that we have had an internal tool that we were using to design these ventilation air systems. And because whenever somebody makes a customization to one of our plans, we have to redo the mechanical most of the time. And this internal tool we actually made publicly available. So we call it the EZERV.
I
And
saw
it's
that. I saw that. Yeah.
yeah, it's honestly becoming more popular than our stock plans, which is great because we're all about, builder tools, making things
Yeah.
efficient. And it's pretty slick. It's based on your square footage, your finished square footage, the number of bedrooms, and the number of bathrooms. And using those three things, you can design to code in 50 states the requirements for ventilation air in your residential space.
Wow.
And so whether it's a little ADU or if it's a 6 bedroom, 6 bath, 5,000 square foot, beauty, you can design your ventilation air system up to code. And so our tool, what it does is it spits out, hey, here's, based on those three parameters, here is the ERV unit that you should spec. Here is what you should balance to. Here's where you need ductwork going to and coming from, and how many CFM you need in those pieces of ductwork. Here's how you might want to design that ductwork system because, like, we don't have the floor plan for your home, and obviously floor plans. I'm sure clients change things every minute of the days. Yeah, like you can't really keep up with it sometimes. But
Right.
yeah, so we offer that tool now to people, the Easy ERV tool,
Yeah, I
and
ran out of.
yeah,
So, so there's anything we forgot to talk about? Oh, here's one.
yeah.
I love your farmhouse design, but I want a
Oh, thank
wood
you.
stove.
Yeah, that's
Wh-
fine. That's fine.
What
We'll work
happens
with you on
then?
it. That would probably be like a customization thing. We would connect with you on well, honestly, like the draft requirements of like a true open fire wood stove. We don't really see very many of those. But if
Right.
you just want to use like a pellet stove or a, fireplace insert sort of style stove, that's fine. We actually include three um high efficiency pellet stoves that are, decorative, you put in the living room sort of thing. So we actually include three of those with each of our
Yeah, and
stock
they
plans.
have their own makeup air.
Um, it depends on the make and model that you're picking. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, and the makeup air, obviously, if somebody called in and were like, hey, we want to have this big open air fireplace, that's gonna need a lot more air than
Sure.
just an insert sort
100%.
of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I call that a
All right.
customization.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, so you've had your plans used in all 50 states, or?
Not all 50 states yet. And I should say our designs are based on colder climates. And so when you design a Cape Colonial farmhouse for a northern climate, it works great because our windows are tall and narrow and our
Sure.
roof pitches are ready for snow and things like that.
Right.
If you were to actually take one of our designs and build it in like a Florida, you certainly could. A colonial would look great pretty much anywhere. So that sounds good. But what happens is it's not necessarily energy efficient for that space. So a
Got
more
it.
southern climate, you're going to want windows on the north side that are tall and narrow. Whereas like here, we want some solar gain in the summer. So we want south facing windows that are skinny and symmetrical or whatnot.
Right.
So the design, what makes an energy efficient design is a little different. So we say our plans work great for 35 states, which is pretty much any location that sees snow. So
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good to know. So, is there anything else that we forgot to talk about home energy, bite the frost, that you want to talk about?
I have one other cool builder tool I'd be happy to share with folks.
Hit it.
Yeah, so obviously I've talked about energy modeling being a big decision maker for us, and I've given a number of presentations throughout New England at different trade shows and conferences on how to do your own energy models because I think every builder should have that as a tool. Be able to run your own manual J is really what most people are calling them now. And so
Right.
most people use that manual J to size their heat pump. Their vendor will do it for them, and they'll get, they'll spit out something. But I think it's important for folks to be able to do it themselves. Like whether it's, hey, this bump out is going to kick me up to a bigger size heat pump. Maybe we don't do that architectural feature anymore. Or is it, do I trust what my manufacturer is giving me for a heat pump? Or are they just giving me what they have too much of on the shelf? And it's nice to just have that ability to second guess it or check it. So we developed a course on heat spring. Have you been on that website recently?
What's it called?
Heat Spring. That's a
Heat
great,
spring.
yeah, great educational resource. So there's a lot of really
Okay.
cool videos on
So that's
there.
heat. So that's heatspring.com.
Yeah, heatspring.com. Yeah.
All right.
And there's a lot of free
We'll put
courses.
it on the screen when we
Yeah,
publish.
absolutely. There's a lot of free courses on HeatSpring, and then there's also some paid ones. Ours is a paid one, sorry, but it teaches you literally how to run your own manual J energy models. And the
Wow.
course maybe like
Okay.
4 or 5 hours, and by the end of it, you can run your house. Because again, that's a tool you don't learn unless you get the job that makes you do it. And
Sure.
I think we all need to know how to do it now with how tight we're building. Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. So now we're gonna go back. We're gonna do some fun stuff.
Okay.
So, who were some of the mentors or influenced you in your early career? Any shout outs you want to give?
Oh, I didn't prepare shout outs. I should have. That's sweet. I had some really good bosses over the years. I'm very thankful for that. And
Okay.
I'm very thankful um for that one interview where they're like, "Hey, we're gonna turn you into a mechanical engineer." Just blow my mind. I could
That's
not
a
believe
great.
that.
That's a great story. Industry trends you are noticing. Industry trends you're noticing.
Yeah. Um, I am noticing more people are embracing air to water heat pumps, at least up here, which is
Interesting.
great. They're really
Wow.
cool.
Air to water heat pumps. So I can truthfully say I've never heard that term. So tell me what that is.
Okay, so most of us think of heat pumps, and it's air to air. So you have that
Sure.
outdoor unit and that indoor unit, and what's happening is you're gathering the energy in that phase change when that gas, that refrigerant is expanding and contracting. There's a lot of energy in that phase change, which is how we gain energy in the system. So instead of it heating and cooling the air, which is the air to air heat pumps we're all familiar with, it'll push that energy into a giant tank of water. And so in your mechanical room, you would have a big old buffer tank full of water. And so this air to water heat pump still has refrigerant, still has an outdoor component and an indoor component. But instead of just pushing energy into the air, it heats up that big tank of water. And you can actually have it
Ah.
cool that tank of water too. So you can have a cold tank and a hot tank. And you can even have a third tank that preheats your domestic hot water. So if you wanted to,
Ooh.
yeah. So it's pretty neat, and I think it makes. They've been doing it in Europe, of course, for a while, but it just makes sense because the inherent amount of energy that air can hold versus the inherent amount of energy that
Oh
water can
yeah.
hold.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a factor of 40. So it's just
At
like,
least,
okay,
yeah.
this makes way more sense. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you can use heat pumps to get radiant, which is a lot of what we're seeing as a new trend is
Yeah,
air water
so that was
radiant.
actually thank you for that. I had forgotten about that because, in the ADU world, especially if you do need to use a slab, then that's an opportunity to introduce some radiant heat into the slab,
Yeah, we definitely
right?
see that.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. All right, common misconceptions in your field.
Ooh, okay. Net zero does not need to be this big, fancy, expensive architectural beauty that matches the landscape perfectly. It does not. It can be a small, regular building. You don't even have to know it's net zero. And honestly, it could just be fossil fuel free. Like we're there. Our technology is there. There's no reason why any home needs a boiler of any sort burning fossil fuel anymore.
So for everyone listening, net zero is no longer a cult. It's
Yeah.
now it's now mainstream and everyone's welcome.
Everyone is welcome. Yeah.
All right. So now the rapid fire segment. Favorite tool you can't live without, and for you it can't be the manual J tool.
Oh yeah, no, it's actually Easy ERB, but no, just for me, it's there's a website page on Ecotrope, Ekotrope, and they have a free web page that lets you figure out the R value of your assembly. So you can do
Oh
a
wow.
roof, floor, or wall assembly, and
Yeah.
it'll actually build into it the framing factor, which the
Wow.
framing factor being like how many R, like what part of your R value do you lose with your studs? And it's
Yeah,
usually
which
like
can be a lot. Right.
20%. Yeah, 20,
Yeah.
25%. So yeah, the Ecotrope assembly R value calculator is pretty great. Saves a lot of time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a go. I'm going to look that up. Let's see. Where does AI fall into your world now? How is that creeping into your world?
Yeah. I'm not a very confident linguist, writer, language person by any means. So AI is like my go-to for writing stuff now. It's so helpful. I've been joking that it's kind of my media marketing manager. But I'm not doing a whole lot of media marketing, so I think that's where AI is coming in. But also AI is becoming really cool for some clients that I can't reach, honestly. And I don't know what aspects of it is AI versus just really cool tools. So like I have some clients in places that, are too far for me to travel, but they have an existing home that they're adding on to is a really great recent example I have. And so there's tools that, you walk around the home with your phone and
Sure.
it does LiDAR points and it gives
Yeah.
you, the points for everything. Hover is another really cool app that
Yeah, I
does
love
that.
Hover.
Hover's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's how AI is getting used by me. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, read the installation guide entirely. Entirely. Yeah. Every piece of
You
equipment.
had so I should say best piece of advice you've ever received and listened to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, no, reading the installation manual for HVAC
Yeah, that's a good
equipment.
one. I like that
That's
one.
yeah, that's
Advice you would give your younger self.
ooh. Um Drop the perfectionism, I think, would be it. Yeah, you can
Okay.
get started with something being at 95%. Pretty
Yeah.
much always. Yeah.
Yeah. Minimum viable product. All right. If you could have dinner with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
Ooh. Wow. Oh, I really don't. I have no idea. Yeah, that's
All right.
oh
That's
man.
okay.
Maybe some really
If you,
cool philosopher, like somebody some
well, I was gonna take you back to your quote. You have a quote that you use. How about Aristotle?
yeah, I'd have dinner there. We might need a translator, but hell yeah.
Well, we'll bring you AI with you,
Yeah,
and we'll have AI translate.
I like
All
it.
right. And we got last two. If you had $10 million to donate, how would you donate it? Who would you donate it to? What groups?
I think some niche community housing groups. There's some really good affordable housing groups out there that are doing really nice things. Um, and I think that that's really beautiful. Because there's really no one size fits all to the affordable housing crisis that we have. And so many folks are like, we're going to do quadplexes or ADUs or just single family homes or these skyscraper apartment buildings. And the truth is we need a little bit of all of it.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that there's no one size fits all. So I'd probably donate to that. And whoever is coming up with some really cool ways to extract CO2 out of the atmosphere, I think that's another. I'd donate some money to whoever's working on that challenge. Yeah.
All right. And then final one, the fun one, favorite food and dessert.
Oh, favorite food and dessert. I like these questions. These are fun. Lunchtime. I could go for a like Thanksgiving sandwich, like a turkey
Oh,
cranberry
yeah.
something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good one.
And the go-to dessert is?
Oh, go to dessert. That's what the other question was. Anything with frosting. I don't think I can just say frosting, but anything with
Yeah, you
frosting.
can. Yeah. Anything frosting. All right. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the BuildX Podcast. Thanks to Gwendolen from Bite the Frost for joining us. Please subscribe, like, and share if you've enjoyed it. And see you next week. And remember, just build, baby.